Who remembers the BJ and Bill show all those years ago on WOLZ? Well, many have said they missed the show, and guess what? They're back. Welcome to the BJ and Bill podcast.
Welcome to BJ and Bill, the podcast, a part of the Podcast Playground Network. We would love for you to give us that 5-star review. Make a little review there, how great we are, if you would. Oh, it would be so appreciated. You can do that wherever you subscribe, whether it be Apple, Spotify, you know the drill, wherever you get your favorite podcast. And now we're all the way up to episode 83, my friends.
Fabulous. Where were you in 83? Let's see. I would have been. Oh, I was married already by 83. Wow.
I would have been in Fort Myers, Florida by 83.
Yeah,
me
too.
No, wait. No. Yes. No.
Figure it out, BJ.
I think it was 82 I moved. Yep. My wife just,
I got married in 80, lived in Columbus, Ohio for a year, and then moved to Fort Myers. So yeah, 82, 83, I was in a dingy little apartment in Fort Myers. Yep.
I started out, my parents had a mobile home right on the Estero River.
Cool.
And so I started there. Then I moved to a camper trailer between Naples and Fort Myers because I originally, was working in Naples when I first moved to Florida. And then I got an apartment on Central Avenue, which back in the day was a beautiful new apartment. And nowadays that would be like kind of in the hood.
Yeah.
As they say.
That would have been 50 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I hear you. When I first moved to Florida, when I was first there, that wasn't Jim Radford. I was thinking that was Jim Radford. It wasn't. It was my first boss at what the time was 96 Super Q. Said that was before BJ and Bill. What was his name? Oh man, I forget his name. It was a guy I knew in college. He was my radio station. He was the manager of the AM public radio station. We had NPR, we had an FM station and an AM and a TV. He was the graduate assistant who was the program director of the AM radio station. So he was only like a year or two older than I was at the time. And he called me up. Literally, I'm unemployed and freezing my butt off in Columbus, Ohio. And my wife and she was working. I was looking for work. And my boss, this friend of mine, I'll remember his name before the end of the show, calls me up and he says, I got a job for you if you want it. I'm like, sweet. I said, where? He said, Fort Myers, Florida. I said, where the hell is that? And he said, either find Fort Lauderdale and go straight west, or find Tampa and go straight south. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So I actually lived with him for the first 2 weeks while I was looking for a place to live or whatever. And he lived across from Paige Field. And I forget the name of it. And it was the hood. I mean, even then it was the hood. It's probably been torn down and replaced by now. But literally, as the planes were landing at Paige Field, you could look up and you could count the rivets on the bottom of the plane. They were so close. And that was before the big airport was open. That was at Paige Field. Unbelievable how loud and close you were to the airport. And he lived there for a couple of years.
I remember, like the first few times flying into Fort Myers.
Oh, yeah.
I would fly into Paige Field. And that's back in the day where you got off the plane and you walked down the little stairs from the plane to the terminal. There was no little snakes that came out, and grabbed the plane and you walked off.
Jetway. The word is jetway. You're right. And I left Columbus and it was winter. I mean, I don't know that it was dead of winter, but it was cold in Columbus. And I flew to Fort Myers and they opened that door and that moist, warm swamp air came into the plane. And I went, oh my God, I'm in South America. and you walk down that, you're like you said, you walk down the stairs because they push the steps up to the plane. You walk down and the airport, the Paige Field, the terminal, it was like a bus terminal. It was the lowest rent. It was just, I'm not saying it was awful for the time. Again, 40, 50 years ago, it was, whatever it needed to be. And yeah, it was bizarre. It was bizarre. Wow. What a culture shock.
But I remember even back then when you flew into Tampa or Miami, you did the same thing.
You really in Tampa even?
Yes.
I didn't fly. I've never flown out of Miami. I've flown out of Tampa a lot. And I don't remember that. Now I do remember I flew when I went to visit an old college roommate, and I landed in some small town in like San Bernardino, California, or something like that. I had the same thing where I walked down the steps and across the tarmac into the terminal. But yeah, that's pretty crazy. Yeah, all right, so there's a little throwback. Woo.
Now here's what's really weird. I think it, like you said, because the heat hits you.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember even because my grandparents had a place in Tampa.
Mm-hmm.
When I was just a little whippersnapper. And I knew my parents brought me a few times, and we'd get off the tarmac. And I even remember then when you'd get off the plane, because you'd usually go see your grandparents in the wintertime.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't go see them in the summertime when it was really hot in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Because, they were usually snowbirds and they would come back north. So I remember though getting off the plane and going down those stairs and remembering, oh my God, how beautiful, how warm this is. But I don't remember walking up the stairs going, oh my God, it's cold out here. Get me in the plane. I do not have memories of that. And obviously, even, Chicago, O'Hare Field or Indianapolis, wherever we flew out of, I would say 50s. Well, even, that would have been at least 50 years ago. That would have been, or more. Those would have had, I think probably stairs. They didn't have the arms back in those days.
That's a good question, because I've flown out of Cleveland all my life. Not the most modern, up to date. But I mean, it's fine. It's a great airport. But I don't remember that either. But maybe that's because we were used to it or something. I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. But you're right. I mean, Cleveland. I loved the Cleveland airport when I would have to go and pick people up or get out myself. It was like 15 minutes from my parents' place, and it was easy in, easy out. Cleveland Airport was great. Yeah. So anyway, it's our airport story.
But see, now you flew down here when you took your first job, and remember getting
very
off the plane.
Very first time. Yes.
The first time I took a job here, not the first time I was in Florida, but the first time I took a job here.
Right.
I actually drove my car. I had my son, who was 4 years old at the time.
Right.
I remember having his toy box in my back seat, and the back seat was full of clothes. The front seat was full of clothes. And, I had a little, console or whatever in the middle.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure, of course, back then, seat belts were not a law. I'm pretty sure that my son sat right next to me. And even at times on the way down, he would fall asleep on the clothes on the other side and sleep a little bit, because we drove pretty much straight. I was a young whippersnapper then.
Uh-huh.
Now give me a stop or two if I'm driving all the way to Indiana.
Yep.
But back then, I drove it, straight all the way there. And I remember, he, would crash out a little bit here, a little bit there. And that's before 75 was done. And I remember going, over the, 275 and over that big bridge,
Oh my God.
In St. Petersburg and all that.
Oh yeah. Now I had a similar, because the first time I flew down, I guess it was just to interview, to see the place and figure out where to live and all, get rent a place to live. And then I flew back, and then I drove down myself. My wife and I had two cars, so I drove myself. She then, God bless her. Shout out to you, Paula. She packed up. It was in a big apartment. It was a 2-bedroom apartment in Columbus, Ohio. But she hired the moving folks and had it packed and then shipped. But I did the same thing as you. I packed up my Ford Pinto, not kidding, with everything that I would need for a few weeks, drove down. Now I did sleep in a rest area for a few hours on the drive, slept in my Pinto, of course, and then kept going. But so, yeah, that was, that was brutal. That was exciting. And yes, like you said, I-75 was not finished. So you would cross Tampa Bay. I remember that. Oh, you just sparked a memory. Because I drove that bridge at night. I drove the Skyway Bridge at night. And I remember you drive out the causeway. And I remember looking up into the sky and I go, oh, look at those lights up there. And then I realized those were cars coming over the top of the bridge. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to have to drive out. So I did, both hands on the wheel, firmly, first time, drove down. And then, like you said, I-75 ended wherever it ended. I don't know, Sarasota or something like that. And you got onto 41 and you drove 41 down south to Fort Myers, which was crazy. All right, man, we are just setting the Wayback Machine here, BJ Odom. Wow.
No kidding.
Woo. I'm feeling this gray hair now that I'm playing with here. So yeah, awesome.
Boy, we're deep into the podcast here. We haven't even mentioned the NCAA playoffs and girl playoffs.
Yeah, Final
ladies
Four's coming.
Playoffs.
Yeah. As we record this, of course, it's a Monday morning, and it was a good weekend for men's college basketball.
You know what? I don't know if I'm going to watch the Final Four.
Oh, come on. Don't lie.
I don't know if my health can take it. I am not going to lie to you. And I do believe that was some of the reason. I went in and I haven't, like they gave me some kind of weird thing where they go in like a catheter and they burn parts of your heart. So I have not experienced AFib in a while. At the end of the games, I find myself going into AFib where my heart rate is up to like 120, 140.
And you're
and it took me like a day and a half of taking the pills that I had back from when I had AFib to finally bring it back down again. So I guess if I keep watching the tournament, I may have to call Tampa and say, you need to get me out of AFib again. These games are trying to kill me.
That's awesome. Well, that's good.
No, it's not.
I wish my heart pounded a little more because I'm pretty calm. Of course, I'm home by myself and you can't get too riled. I mean, I do when I'm watching football. I get pretty riled up by myself, watching football games at home. But I mean, I wasn't that cranked up. It's fun to see that you were that cranked up. So
I got to say, I was proud of my wife. When they were down to the Sweet 16,
right.
We went out to my son's Airbnb because he was, right around the corner.
Right.
She had her Purdue shirt on.
Nice.
He had left by Sunday or Saturday Saturday for the game there with the Boilermakers.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sitting there watching. All of a sudden, my wife jumps out of her chair, runs and gets her boy. She goes, I got to put on my Boilermaker shirt.
Right. I'm bringing it up here.
She watches the game, but I mean, this is like the first time I've ever seen her going, no, oh. And she was actually into the game.
Very cool.
And I was like, maybe that's why it got my heart going.
Maybe so.
I think I went into AFib again this morning because, as we say, we record this on Monday.
Right.
And I wake up. And we woke up late anyway because we went to bed late because I watched the race and I'm in a daze anyway. And the first thing out of her mouth is when I see her, do you want to have sex?
Oh, no. Really?
Really? And I'm serious. She looks me straight in the eyes. She goes, and I'm a boy. I'm a man.
Yes,
what do you think what do you think the first words out of my mouth are?
Yes.
That's what the first words were. And she goes, April Fools.
Oh.
Tell me.
Hurt my heart. That made me go into the AFib. Oh, That's cruel. That's a cruel April Fool's joke.
And that's what I told her too.
You can't be messing around like that. Not with something like that.
Yeah, especially when the boy's been in AFib already, and then you're going to do that to him.
Lucky you didn't have a heart attack right there on the spot. She'd have felt bad.
Well, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, I've had AFib the last couple of days.
Right.
Do I really want to do this? Because that could get it going. But okay. Yes.
So you had a brief moment of thinking. All right, yeah. I'll give you that. A guy in your condition, perhaps.
But I didn't give a think about the day that it was.
No. I wouldn't either. That would never have crossed my mind. In fact, I saw somebody mention something today. I forget where I was, Facebook or something. And somebody said, remember, don't believe a thing you see online today, especially today. It's like all the crazy stuff that's been going on in the world. And I'm like, oh yeah, and I actually surfed over to google.com because Google normally has some cute little, April Fool's joke. And I didn't see anything. And I'm thinking, because a lot of people have said April Fool's Day this year has been canceled because it just can't get any more weird out there.
That's true.
It's just too weird already. So anyway, back to the men's Elite Eight games over the weekend, which were as I look at the scores, it's like, okay, those were some pretty, they were pretty one-sided, but the games themselves were really good. I did not see UConn, and you and I were texting about this last night. UConn beat Illinois big time. I mean, 25 points, 77-52 was the final there. And I had to admit, I admitted to you last night, I will tell you right now, I haven't seen UConn play once this year. And I'm like, everybody says they're unstoppable. They're a juggernaut. They're going to be, and I'm like, okay, we'll see. And then I saw that score and I went, okay, they crushed Illinois. The other game on Saturday, let's see, Alabama beat Clemson. That was pretty close, 89-82. And I did watch that. That was a good game. And Alabama, come on, football team, football school. No, basketball school, going to the Final Four. Very good for you. And then yesterday were, two good games that ended up, the score didn't really reflect at the end because I guess you got garbage time and people run away with it. But, Purdue, the big man, Mr. Edey, Zakiel Edey, as Shaq calls him, beat number 2 Tennessee 72-66. And then last night, that was a pretty good game too. But in the end, NC State, number 11 seed, beats Duke 76-64. So there's your Final Four. Wow.
It's going to be fun to see a big guy against the big guy.
Oh, it's going to be awesome. It really is. It really is. So sets up UConn against Alabama. That's going to be interesting. And then, like you said, the two big men, and I even texted you that last night, Edey and what's his name? Burns, I think, or something. I forget. But two really big, strong kids, Purdue against NC State. So that's going to be a good final. And you don't think you're going to watch, huh? You don't think your heart can take it?
I don't think I can take it. I don't think I can take it anymore.
Okay. I mean, that's on you. That's fine.
Of course, I did see a lot of basketball over the last week because I also, as you know, I got to see my boy, and my boy took me to see my basketball boy, Steph Curry.
There's a lot of boys in there, but yes, I guess it was a boys' night out in Orlando.
Yeah.
You went to see your Warriors play Orlando. There you go.
And I was, okay, there's like 2 minutes left in the game.
Right.
And I'm going, oh my God, I cannot believe I have not seen Steph Curry make one 3-point shot this entire game. I watched him in the pregame, where they go out and they do their, calisthenics and their
warm-up
shot. He's over there in the corner, boom, 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 boom. And I'm like, oh, this is so cool. And then we got into the game and nothing. He was cold as ice. I mean, he still, I think, got 30 points.
Right. Did he take the shots?
He took some threes.
Okay.
But then finally, with less than 2 minutes to go, and it was the dagger, because they were up by 5. And so he made the 3-pointer.
Right.
And I got to see him do his little signature run all the way down the court. Night,
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 yeah,
night.
night,
And
night.
that was worth the price of admission. Well, my son paid for the tickets.
Right, but I get it. If you'd have paid for it, the little step, and he does. If you didn't see it, folks, BJ is doing his, two hands to the side of the head, laying down in his pillow like Steph does when it's like night, night. You're out of here. So yeah, which if the Warriors, I mean, okay, you beat Orlando. Woo! You beat Orlando. Good job. It's that they're nowhere near where they need to be. I mean, well, all right. So we just did the Final Four. I'm going to surf over to check
they're still going
standings here.
As of right now, they're still in the playoffs directly. They're not in a play-in tournament.
Orlando. Oh, they're not.
No.
Okay. They're in the. All right. Let's see here. Where's the?
I don't know.
Yeah, right now. Well, no, that's not what NBA says.
Oh, they're what? They're now in seventh
playoff picture. All right. So let's go out to the West. They are now, as we record this. I always say that when I write my Shaquille O'Neal Shaq Fu radio posts. As I type this, Golden State is in 10th.
Oh yeah, I knew that. I'm talking about the Magic.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're talking Orlando. Let's see.
Yeah, Orlando is
in 5th. Who knew? Orlando is solid in the playoffs.
Yeah.
In fact, yeah. Now, if you go to NBA.com, thank you very much, NBA.com. They have a bracket set up so that you can check, who's doing what. And so, yeah, that's cool. So, and it's updated every day. So yeah, Orlando in 5th. My Cleveland Cavaliers are in 3rd. Yeah. Boston is, of course, still crushing it. Milwaukee and Cleveland, 1, 2, 3 in the East. And then in the West, Oklahoma City, Denver, Minnesota Timberwolves. There you go. Wow. Okay. It's going to be. Now, will you watch NBA playoffs? Do you care or do you not care?
I will. I will for sure. I will be disappointed, but I will.
You'll be disappointed. Yeah.
It's not, but I know, I wouldn't doubt Golden State will be in whatever they play. I mean,
well, they're in the play-in at this point. They still got to play. They still got to play LeBron.
Yeah, that's probably how it's going to end up, unless something really big changes.
Yeah,
they're going to play the Lakers, and then they'll play the winner of
Then they will play the winner of the other play-in, which at this point, again, as we report, will be either Sacramento or Phoenix. So, and I would normally, because I lived in Phoenix for 7 years and saw my share of Suns games, normally I would care about that, but I don't. I haven't. It's been so long since I watched a Phoenix Suns game being out west and all that. Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, what really, what they were, ESPN was talking about it, that 3 of the best players in the NBA are in the play-in tournament. You got Steph Curry, you got LeBron James, and you got, what's his name? That used to be with the Warriors with Phoenix. Oh, why can't I think of his name? But yeah. Oh, did you?
I'm sorry, I had myself muted there. Chris Paul, were you thinking Chris Paul?
No, I was thinking the guy that used to be on the Warriors. I can't remember his name.
I don't either. So
he's also, he's one of the big stars in the NBA.
Right.
And like 3 of the biggest stars in the way ESPN was putting it, 3 of the biggest stars in the NBA are in the play-in tournament.
Right. And by the way, do not call and tell me I was wrong. Do not post on Facebook and I was wrong, because I don't think Chris Paul's with Phoenix anymore.
No,
he was, but he's not. So
he's with the Warriors now.
What a loser I am. So
I
don't watch the NBA West. I'm sorry. I don't.
And I got this too. You can say his name. I can't, but also by going to the game.
Right.
I got this cute little bobblehead because it was bobblehead night.
It was bobblehead night. Paolo
Banchero.
Paolo Banchero. I've never heard of Paolo Banchero, but apparently he's a star with Orlando.
Yeah, because I got his bobblehead now.
You got the bobblehead.
I like the way they got his little braids and everything there.
Nice fancy hairdo. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Nice braids on the head. Yeah. So is that going to go on your trophy case or something? I mean,
well, it goes with all my, I got a whole bunch of Everblades bobbleheads.
Yeah, I remember
because, they always did bobblehead night. And so I have
Right.
all those behind me, and
There you
that
go.
was over there, but I thought for the podcast I would.
Yes.
I know
Yes.
our listeners can't see it, but
He's cute.
Bill can see it.
Paulo Banchero. Who did Mr. Banchero have a night when you saw him, or did you even notice?
I didn't even notice. I will admit I'm not really, but after watching the game,
Right.
they do have a good team. I'm saying, maybe I should, follow the Magic a little more than I do.
Right.
Because I really don't follow them at all. And I live, less than an hour away from the stadium.
And same here. I live less than 2, and I still don't follow them. No, I don't.
And what's funny, because I was talking to my son, because we got talking about the stadium, and I says, yes, it's the same stadium where the Solar Bears play hockey.
Oh, yeah, in Orlando, yes.
And they're in the ECHL with the Florida Everblades, which were from our neck of the woods, which we followed, and we had a lot of the players,
yes,
on the air with us when we were back on the radio.
Had a great time with that.
And I says, yeah, and I says, it's really funny to go to that stadium to watch minor league hockey because they don't even fill the bottom level.
No,
but it's, but they do get a pretty decent crowd there. And he would say, though, as being in a minor league hockey team, that's probably pretty cool to be playing in that arena.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, that's if you're with the Orlando Solar Bears or whatever, yes, you're like, wow, I'm playing in the big time here. You're already getting used to, but you're right. I mean, it's not so much fun that it's not a full house, but when we would go and see the Everblades at, the arena there at what is now Hertz Arena, I think it's still Hertz Arena.
Yeah, at least as of last week.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it changed a lot. I mean, I think the capacity there for hockey was what, like 7,500 or something like that.
Yeah, 75, maybe 76 if you got,
and they filled it. I mean,
yeah.
in the good years, I don't know if it's been, again, 20 years since I've been there, but they filled it. So cool. Very nice.
Well, they've won the Kelly Cup the last 2 years. And what I have heard from people that the crowds have been pretty good the last few years again. Because there for a while, for a while, it was getting, maybe half full for them.
Right.
But then, when they got on those winning years again, crowds picked back up.
I have talked about going to see a game in Jacksonville because Jacksonville is actually closer for me. So they have the Icemen and they have a good minor league baseball team there as well. So yeah, I might have to, I still think I'd like to do that. I don't have any plans in the immediate future, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Awesome. Boy, we've just been ranting and raving here and we've already killed off the first half hour of the show. How about that, young man?
Ah, right. And I can relax now and get out of AFib.
Get out of AFib. Yeah, it's one of those. That's one of those conditions or one of those things that I see on the TV commercials all the time for like this may cause. It's always when they do they do a 30-second commercial that turns into a 60-second commercial with all the "this might kill you" thing at the end. It's like might lead to, and it's always so fast. It's like may lead to death. I'm like, what? Wait, what? So anyway, not for you. I'm not putting that out there for you. I'm just saying you have your medical team taking good care of you. So.
Well, I feel a little safer too because I have the watchman inside me.
What's a watchman?
It's that thing they put in your heart. It's like a little basket that will catch like a blood clot that might go through the heart that could cause a heart attack or a stroke.
So you've got like a grease
like a little
strainer
catcher
in your heart.
Yeah, like a little catcher's mitt. Like it catches a little blood clot.
Really?
Yeah.
That modern medical technology never fails to amaze me. Modern technology of all kind never fails to amaze me. That's the coolest thing ever. I've not heard that. How long have you had that?
Well, since I had AFib, like probably 4 years ago, 3 years ago.
Wow.
I got parts all over the place.
Yeah, I know you got. Yeah. You got parts everywhere. I hear you. All right, everybody. Well, you go and take care of whatever parts need to be taken care of. Refill your coffee. I think I'm going to do that. And we will be right back. Welcome back. I'm Bill Stevens. That's BJ Odom. And this is BJ and Bill, the podcast. Feel free to check us out. We have a Facebook page by the same name, BJ and Bill Podcast. Remember, spell out the A-N-D. You can reach us at bjandbillpodcast@gmail.com. But most importantly, the best thing you can do, the most important use of your time this day, whenever you are listening, would be to stop over to Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you're listening to this and leave that 5-star review. We appreciate it very much, very much.
And I'd like to thank the boys at the Big Bad Broadcast podcast.
The Big Bad Broadcast podcast?
Yes.
That's
they're
a thing?
they're a part of the Podcast Playground Network also, like we are.
Excellent.
It's John Ferrantino, who is like a big-time comedy magician.
Awesome. Oh.
And then Mike Grief, who is also on the podcast. Another good friend who has also been on a few. So I got to get him because he's in LA, and I've got to get him here to Florida to meet my wife because he's been in a few Hallmark movies.
Wow.
So
Hallmark
he's like
movies.
He's
wow.
like a Hallmark star.
Wow. He's like a big movie star. Right. There's Keanu Reeves and then there's him.
Yeah, that's the way it works. Yeah.
Well, cool. Good for him. So anyway, why are we shouting out the big podcast out there?
Because they let me be on their podcast. They invited me as a guest.
You were on the podcast. Wow.
Oh yeah, they let me on their podcast so I could promote our podcast.
How cool is that?
Yeah, so I was on their podcast. I promoted our podcast. They also had who excuse me, because we all did a podcast together.
Right.
Mike Grief and John Ferrantino, Tom Drake, and I, and his daughter Dottie Drake, who is Dottie Colossus. She goes by her maiden name on the ships because she's a cruise director. So if you remember when the cruise directors all had to, kind of shut down all the cruise industry.
Yeah.
Because they're all cruise ship entertainers. And so they did this podcast. And somehow, since I'm such good friends with Tom, I was invited to be a part of their podcast. And it lasted about a year. We did a daily podcast.
A daily? Wow.
Well, Monday through Friday.
Well, sure. That's awesome.
And so
how was your experience on this new? How was your experience on this new podcast?
It was kind of scary to promote their podcast with our audience because we keep ours pretty well PG. We don't drop too many naughty words. They start theirs with Jackie the Joke Man telling a joke, which is usually pretty crude. But hey, it's Jackie the Joke Man. What do you expect?
Okay.
And then they drop a few F-bombs here and there. I didn't. I was respectful to my partner, Bill Stevens, because I was promoting our show. So I did not drop any F-bombs.
I guess I think I appreciate that. Thank you. I guess.
But there were many explosions throughout the podcast.
Okay. Explosions. And does their show have a main topic, or is it just like ours where we just sit around and gripe for an hour?
Pretty much. They just sit around and gripe for an hour. No.
Okay.
They try to make it comical since they're all comedians.
Well, we try to make it comical, and only one of us is a comedian, and sometimes we fail and sometimes we don't. So
yeah. So, I mean, it was fun to be with the boys again. That's kind of like, getting the band back together.
Yes. I hear you.
And I also promoted my new podcast, which is coming soon to the Podcast Playground Network.
I wanted to ask you about that. Tell us more. BJ Odom is going to do kind of I'm not going to call it a spin-off because that would be weird, but BJ Odom is going to do another podcast, this one on his own. And by the way, I'm also working on a similar project, but let's hear about yours.
It'll be called, we already have a name for it now, Gifted Life, the Organ Transplant Podcast.
Gifted Life. I love that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I had a few names that were kind of close to that. And my son came up with a final name, and he's in the process of, he takes care of his dad. That's all I can say.
We know that.
Because he goes, you will need a logo. You will need a name.
Right.
Oh, I threw a couple names at him. I had a couple logos made with AI, but I hadn't, pulled the trigger on buying any of them yet.
Right.
And so I sent those to him. And then he sent me a new name, which was similar to the name I had. And then he sent me a couple generic logos. And he
Right.
says, if you agree with this, then I'll start working on them. I says, yeah, that sounds good. So we're currently working on the logo. Later this week, I have to work on the little, minute promo that's going to air for, about 2 or 3 weeks before we start kicking off the actual podcast.
Right. Awesome. And so the podcast, for those, I mean, we talk about it all the time, but you're going to do you're going to dedicate a podcast specifically to, when you said like organ transplants and stuff like that, what's the slant on it? You're going to talk to other recipients, or?
Yeah, the goal is to talk to other recipients. Also, it's a little tricky. I mean, it's not tricky because some are really, excited to tell their stories. I'm going to get stories from other transplant patients, which have different organs besides the kidney and heart, like I have. Some have, livers. Some have, pancreases. Some of them have,
all the different parts.
Yeah, there's all sorts of parts you can get through transplantation. Right. And I'm going to try and talk to some donor families, get their take. And, I know that they're busy and sometimes they're hesitant to talk, but maybe try to get a few medical experts,
right,
on every now and again also.
That'd be awesome. That would be awesome.
And it's only going to be like about a 20, 30-minute podcast every week.
Okay.
Not going to be like the hour-long BJ and Bill, the podcast.
Have you started reaching out to people, or are you just now in the planning stages here?
In the planning stages, but I do have someone where I was going to talk to Thursday. So that'll kind of be our pilot podcast. So we'll see how it goes from there, and how this little machine works too.
Oh, he's had this toy. I'm not gonna say toy. It was an expensive piece of electronic equipment where he can record people and add sound effects and all kind. We look forward to him figuring out how it works.
I'm not too much into the sound effects for this podcast.
Yeah, no.
But I will, you do talk to, I don't want to call them layman's, but you and I were in the broadcast industry. We know a little bit about microphones and technology.
Yes.
A lot of these people don't know squat about it.
Right.
I mean, some do, some don't.
Right.
So I want to be able to make it so some people I can actually interview on a phone, and so the phone will go through the system.
That's a great idea. Yeah. And then you can, make it sound good and do all that sort of thing. That's awesome. That is awesome.
So we'll see how it all works out. I want to have Bill to help me technically. It might be a cluster. You know what? Which we don't say on this podcast. It might set me off into AFib.
I understand that. It very well could. It very well could. So, all right. Can I tell you about what I'm doing?
Yeah.
Well, we've had our friend, the spiritual guru and, funny lady Vicky on with us a couple of times, Miss Vicky Wagner up there in Blue Ridge, Georgia. And so she and I have been buddies. Well, you and her and I have all been friends for God knows how long. Perhaps, she and I have kept in a little better touch than you have, but that's okay. Doesn't matter. She's, she still loves you, and we're all friends. So she and I have been working on this idea for years. And now when you talked about your new podcast a couple of weeks ago, I decided, well, what the hell or heck, I should get serious with this as well. So yours truly, along with our, what would we call it? Well, she's, a spiritual guidance person, a coach, a life coach or whatever. So anyway, it is going to be, at this point, the name is The Practical Path, a podcast for personal and spiritual growth, because we want it to be practical ideas, because you see these gurus on TV all the time spouting this crazy advice, but we're just going to talk about life and how you can live it better for yourself.
I probably better be doing that too. I'll be listening because I need to figure that out.
And we've actually recorded 2 of them already. So I am doing some editing on them. And I need to also get in touch with the boss. That would be your son, about getting all of that going. So I think, I like it. I mean, like I said, we've recorded a couple of hours already and they've turned out just fine. And yeah, I think it'll be fun. It'll be, we enjoy talking about this stuff anyway. So it was just like the BJ and Bill show back on the radio days. We just do it for our own amusement anyway. If anybody else wants to listen, we appreciate that. So.
Yeah, I unfortunately watched a television show but it was, talking about not organ donation, but another project that someone was doing about another disease.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, oh, I should do that for organ, for transplant and organ. And, who will listen? I don't know, but hopefully lots and lots of people will.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's a big deal, right? I mean, I've known you, of course, for all these years. So I'm not going to say I'm close to it, but I'm familiar with what's going on in the medical field when it comes to that sort of thing, because I hear it from you. But yeah, it's as the science and the technology and the medicine get better and better, we're probably going to be replacing more and more parts for more and more people.
Yep.
So yeah, I think that's awesome. I think that's really cool. So I look forward to hearing it. So there you go.
Yeah, hopefully I'll be able to pull it off, as they say.
I'm sure you will. So,
I might have to end up just saying, okay, I've got this really nice piece of equipment,
right?
But whoever I talk to is going to have to do it on Zoom so I can record it.
Well, that's what Vicky and I have been doing. We've just been recording on Zoom, through her iPad up there in the mountains. It works just fine. It's no big deal. So yeah.
I'll figure it out one way or another.
I'm sure you will.
I told the first person I'm going to interview is actually the president of because we have a little support group in Fort Myers.
Right.
Obviously, I have moved away from Fort Myers, so I'm not as close with the group. But the president, I'm going to have them on the first one. So I told them this might be a pilot episode. We may try to record it, and then we may have to record it again if stuff doesn't work out.
Right. And remember, a while ago, it's been months now, we were talking about, because we found a news article about that guy in Canada that was like the longest living heart transplant person on earth or something like that. And I had reached out to him and he was open to being interviewed too. So maybe you could, that would be a good outlet for that. If you wanted to talk to him on your show as well, I think he would still be fun to be on this show, but especially on your new show as well. So yeah, that'd be cool.
And I think really, though, we had him kind of pegged wrong, though, because when I was talking to my coordinator and said, because what did you say they were transplanted? Like how many years?
I thought it was 30 some years, but yeah.
Yeah, because there are now, because my coordinator said from Tampa General anyway, there are people that have been transplanted with a heart for more than 40 years now.
There you go.
I'd like to be able to do that with mine, but there's some people too that, when you think of heart transplants, they were transplanted as like teenagers and children. Right. And so they probably got a better chance of sticking around 40 years than because like I'm in my, I'm going to be pushing 70 before too long.
Right.
I got another friend with a heart transplant that's like 70 or 71 now.
Right.
So, once you get to that age, not only can you have difficulties with your transplant, but other issues seem to pop up too.
It's called, I got news for you, BJ. It's called old age.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Age. Yeah, it sucks a lot, but it happens to all of us. So do the best you can. That's all we ask.
And go as long as you can.
That's it. That's all you can do. So
hey, I know it's coming up in a couple of weeks. It's not like this week, I don't think. But are you excited about the total eclipse of the heart? The big
Bonnie Tyler, thank you. Yes, I am, and I was kind of thinking of going back up to Ohio because I still have a tiny bit of family there, and being there because Ohio, Cleveland is right on in the main thing. So, but unfortunately, I'm not. So that's a good question. When is that eclipse coming? That's a good question. Let's look that up.
I think it's like in 2 or 3 weeks. They're already like, warning people about, you got to have special glasses. And a lot of the glasses people are buying are not really what they need to have.
actually, it's exactly a week from now. It's April the 8th. As we
Oh.
record this on Monday, April 1st, it's April the 8th. So that'd be cool. Yeah. And I mean, here in Florida, we'll get a good chunk of it too. It just won't be the total eclipse of the heart, as you said, as it will like our old friend. Remember, speaking of spiritual folks, our old friend, Reverend Gregory Keene, is going to be up at his summer home in Lilydale, New York, which is 45 minutes east of Buffalo, right on the lake up there. And they're in for it too, which that's going to be crazy. I mean, a spiritual community full of ghosts and spirits and all that in a full on eclipse. That's going to be crazy. I would pay money to be there. Yeah. Well, I could pay money to be there, but I haven't made plans. So there you go. But anyway, it's going to be cool. So I'm looking forward to it. I think that's super cool. If you've been on YouTube or X/Twitter, lots of crazy people are coming out of the woodwork and saying lots of crazy things about what's going to happen that day. So other than going outside and watching it with your special glasses, of course, I think I might keep my head down on that day. Just in case.
Now, like you said, because you are on, I have X, Twitter, whatever, but I don't watch it that often. But so what do you say? Like when you get on there and do you X something now or do you tweet something?
That's a good question. And I don't know the answer.
I think it needs to be answered.
I think you're right. Do you still tweet on X or do you X? So X.
Or are you Xing? No, are you Xing?
Like texting and sexting. Are you Xing? That's a good question. Instead of tweeting on Twitter, if it's not tweet on Twitter. All right. Can I put that? How would you phrase that? If I go to Google and I type in, if it's tweet on Twitter, what is it
called on X?
Right.
So maybe that's something we need to ask the AI person.
Right. So yes. So if you go to Google, of course, you get the AI generated answer, and the answer appears to be X'd. You do an, well, wait a minute. If you post something on X, the former Twitter platform, it would be more appropriate to say that you X'd instead of tweeted. XED, X'd. Elon Musk, the owner of Twitter, rebranded the site. Yeah, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so X'd is X'd.
That just don't sound cool.
No, it doesn't sound cool at all.
Tweeting, I tweeted this, like Tweety Bird.
Right, and then if you really go crazy, it's a tweet storm.
But who wants to really talk about their ex?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. It sounds like I don't want to talk about my ex. I mean, whatever. So yeah, that's kind of weird and not really super cool. So Elon, get to work. Find a better verb there for what you do on X. Maybe we could just make up a whole new word. That's cool.
Maybe Rocket Robin.
I can't whistle this morning. Yeah, that's a great idea.
But yeah, I was wondering that. I was just thinking, what do you call it nowadays?
I don't know.
It's called X'd, I guess.
I X'd
this.
Yeah,
that sounds
dumb.
Yeah,
that's just there's no spark to that. There's no juice to that. So all right, we'll work on that. We'll get the research department at the BJ and Bill podcast. We'll put them we'll get them hard at work on what it is when you send somebody a message on X. So
and I don't want to get you too depressed here today.
Oh boy.
But a report says that there are, just under 30 million millionaires in the United States in 2023. Yeah, under 30 million now. That's a sad number. It's only less than 30.
Well, that I'm not one of them. That's the sad part. That you and I are not one of those 30 million, not two of those.
I'd like to be a thousandaire. I'd be happy being a thousandaire. I don't have to be a millionaire. Let me be a thousandaire.
Well, come on. If you're getting, they always say the first million's the hardest.
Yeah. Let me be 100. I'm 100 air. It's like an
credit card. Does that count?
Yeah. I got $20,000 on this credit card. I'm a 20,000-aire.
Potentially. Yes,
Yeah.
you are. So there's how many million?
Under 30 million.
That's
That's a lot of million. That's a lot
of millionaires. That's a lot of millionaires.
I think I might only know one
millionaire.
Yeah.
How well do you know them? I mean, is it like a personal friend? Well. Could you call them?
No, but my son could.
Oh, okay. Well, sure. Shaq. That's easy.
That's the only one I know of.
And he's way up there too. I mean, he's not just like barely over the million. He's doing pretty well.
He went his goal. He has a goal.
Is
at least this was like 3 or 4 years ago. I heard this though. He wants to be a billionaire.
He also wants to buy the Orlando Magic, so he's going to need to be a billionaire.
Oh man, then I'll go to the games.
I would go to yes, I would too. I would make that drive. Well, he has talked about wanting to own a team. I mean, he owned a piece of Sacramento for a while. He was a minority, very small piece owner of the Sacramento Kings for a while. He sold that. And then now he's talking more about majority ownership. And he was thinking he had a couple of teams in mind, and Orlando is one of the top ones on his list. Now, that doesn't mean that the family that owns Orlando is ready to sell, but I'm sure that when they get to that point, he's probably going to be at the top 3 people they call. He's right there on the top of the list.
He's also talked about running, I should say, not being, but running for the Orange County Sheriff's Office too.
Shaq?
Yep.
Wow. Orange County Sheriff. That's funny. Why would he take such a pay cut? I mean, that's just.
But, he is like a deputy sheriff.
Yes, he's been deputized in a lot of counties around the country. Yeah, in Miami-Dade and Lauderdale and up in Atlanta area, all that stuff. Yeah.
So he's talked about it.
So that's the only millionaire you know. I'm thinking hard about that. So obviously I couldn't call Shaq, but I'm pretty familiar with him. But I would say I probably would. I mean, between all the people I know online, Facebook friends and stuff like that, there's a few millionaires. There's a small handful of millionaires that I probably, and again, could I reach out and get any of them on the phone in a moment's notice? Probably not. But yeah, there's a few. I mean, I still enjoy following. I don't really do it a lot. The old network marketing thing, the MLM stuff, that business model makes millionaires on a regular basis, and I've seen and talked to a couple of them in my time. Again, we're not friends, but going to conventions and stuff like that, meeting up with some of these people that have been in the business for a few years and are just crushing it. Yeah, they're making $1 million a year, easy. I shouldn't say easy. They're working for it. But yeah, they have a substantial income.
Okay.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know any of them.
You don't know any of that? Well, I'm not saying, like I said, I could pick up the phone and go, hey, it's Bill. And they'd go, hey, Bill, how's it going? But now you got me thinking about that. Now you got me thinking about millionaires.
I just wish I knew one that I could call on the phone and go, hey, I'm a little short this month.
Right.
You think you could give me a couple, couple thousand to pay off this credit card bill?
I was going to say, your son doesn't fall into that category, our boss, but then he's spending money like on his business and on his kids and all that stuff. So yeah, probably.
And he's old man.
And he's taking his old man to basketball games and stuff like that. So he's spending some money. So yeah, he probably has. In fact, it's probably not even hard. He probably has $1 million cash flow every year, coming in, going out, probably easily. But yeah, any business owner could do that. I mean,
Yeah, his Airbnb was pretty cool that he stayed in here.
Does he own it, or you mean he just rented it?
No, and he just rented it for 3 days.
In Orlando?
Yeah. Well, in Claremont, actually. It was on the lake. Well, it was on a like a canal that went out to a lake.
Went out to the lake.
And the chain of lakes here.
Yep.
And it was like big, like 5 bedrooms.
Wow.
It's listed on Zillow because they also have it for sale.
Right.
And it was listed for, I think it was $830,000.
Pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Pretty sweet.
Although in the Zillow ad, it said it had a theater.
Theater.
like a lot of people have, theater seats.
Home theater. Yep.
Home theater. I never could find it unless it's hidden away somewhere in that house. But I did. And I mean, it was probably someone who had it was elderly or something.
Right.
Because it was like 2-story.
Right.
It had an elevator, you couldn't get like a whole group, like one person at a time. It's like getting beamed up in the Spaceship Enterprise or whatever.
Right.
You get in this little tube, and you close the door and then.
Cool. Just one at a time though, huh?
Yeah. It takes you up and down.
Yeah.
I rode that a couple of times. That was fun.
I had back when I was doing my computer tech support business in Sarasota, I had a client who would call me occasionally, and I would say, I will be right there, sir. He lived on Siesta Key, which is the most gorgeous high-end beach there is. And his house was like an art museum, a modern art museum. It was like one of these glass cubes that, the garage was downstairs and then 2-floor, 3-floor above. And he had an elevator, a big one. I mean, a regular sized elevator that would go up and down. And out the back of his office was a patio that looked down the canal, that looked out to the water. Oh my God. It was like, I should look on Zillow and see what that house has got to be $2-3 million. Well, I don't know what the real estate market is like now, but on Siesta Key, it's probably still pretty hot.
Yeah.
I got to look that up. Thank you for that reminder. I'm going to check on that house just to see, when he goes. I always told him as I was leaving, I'm like, because he was a snowbird. He was like from Chicago or something, some big time businessman. And I would always tell him, hey, if you need somebody to house sit while you're gone, you know my number. You know where to find me. Awesome. All right. That's awesome, Mr. BJ. That's great. Boy, look at that. We got a few minutes left to go, but I was going to say, we just have wasted no time getting through this show today. And I know you had some notes and everything. And have you got to one of them?
I got to a couple of them, the millionaire thing and the total eclipse of the heart thing.
Total eclipse of the heart. So that's, again, as we record this show on Monday, April 1st, no joke. It's a week. It's the 8th. So now we need to make sure, by the way, that's a good reminder. I don't want to be recording this podcast while the eclipse is happening. I want to be able to go out and take a look at it. So we need to check.
It happens at night.
Schedule it.
It happens at night though, right? It happens at night because it's going to be.
How can eclipse happen at night?
Oh yeah, the sun's out, right? I don't know. I'm not a meteorologist, or have I ever played one on television?
That's one of the oldest ethnic. I'm Polish. What can I say? I'm very Polish. When I was a kid, we used to tell Polak jokes. That's one of the oldest Polish jokes ever. It's like the Polish space agency says, forget the moon. We're going to the sun. And everybody says, how the hell are you going to go to the sun? And the guy says, we're going at night. That's kind of like a dad joke now. In the old days, we didn't have dad jokes. We just had lame jokes. So we're going to the sun, but we're going at night. All right. So we're going to look that up. We're going to schedule it and make sure we're not recording this podcast. Boy, what kind of crazy energy would that be if we were recording the podcast during the eclipse? Wow.
Maybe we should.
Maybe. I mean, the eclipse takes a couple of hours to happen. Maybe somewhere in there we could do that. I don't know. It's going to be weird.
Of course, you got to figure out if you're going to go up north where you'll really see.
I'm not going to go.
Thing.
It's too late to plan on that now. I mean, I'd love to, but it's too late to plan on that now. So I'll be here. I'll be here in exciting Gainesville. You'll be there in exciting Claremont, and we will do the podcast as always, but we will just make sure that we schedule it so we can get outside and see what's going on. Remember, folks, don't look directly into the sun. Get those good glasses or whatever they do. So, yeah.
Yeah, it won't bother me. I'm half blind anyway.
You don't want to become fully blind.
Just finish the job for me.
You don't want to go all the way. Trust me. You do want to go all the way, but not with blindness. So
April Fools.
April Fool. I think you should take another shot at that. I think when we're done recording, I think you need to speak to you need to go speak to your wife and say, hey, joke's over. Time for the real thing. Yeah. Give it a shot. You could get lucky. You could.
Good.
You're making a face. All right. Last minute thoughts there, Mr. Odom.
Don't know what my last thought would be.
All right, you're good then.
Maybe I'll experiment with this new toy I have later today.
Keep playing with it. You know my phone number if you need help. All right, ladies and gentlemen, go out there, make it a great week. Be careful with that eclipse. If you're, hearing this, well, you're going to have another show, but no, it'll be over by the time we do the next show. Yeah,
because we won't. Yeah, by the time we do by the time the next show comes out, because it comes out on Wednesday, we record on Mondays, so we're always a few days late.
There you go.
That's the story of my life.
Try just give it a shot today. Report back to us next week on how it goes. All right, everybody, have a great week. Careful with the eclipse. We'll see you then. Until then, it's just up to BJ Odom to say,
see ya.